Parshas Mishpatim gives us 53 out of the 613 mitzvahs of the Torah, largely focusing on civil law. These halachas regulate all transactions, all different ways of acquiring property, of selling property, of liabilities for damages and for shomrim. Almost all of Baba Kama, Baba Metzia, and Baba Basra has its foundations in Parshas Mishpatim. A really totally remarkable parsha. Tucked away in the middle of this is one pasuk I'd like to focus on for a few minutes, which deals really with a slightly different type of mitzvah. And the pasuk says, "Im kesef talveh es ami, es he'oni imach, l'sia lo kanoshe." The pasuk is telling us that there is a concept of a interest-free loan. Giving a loan to somebody who is struggling financially, who is in need. This, the pasuk introduces to us with the word im. Im kesef talveh, if you manage to do this. So the Torah is telling us if you do lend money to another person, you shouldn't take ribbis, you shouldn't take interest. Now the topic of ribbis is not my subject for today, it's a very complex issue. And of course there are different ways in which Chazal made it possible to, under certain circumstances, take ribbis. But the fundamental halacha is, you're not allowed to take interest or press him for repayment. What really is going on here in this mitzvah? And there is some very, very fascinating, in-depth issues here in this particular Mishnah. First of all, so for example, if you look in the Rambam Mishnah Torah, the Rambam's got a whole section of his Mishnah Torah called Hilchos Malveh V'Loveh, dealing with loans and repayments. And all the different variations which we find in the Gemara, the Rambam brings down halacha l'maisa, loans with a contract, without a contract, with edim, without edim, loans that are mortgaged on various different properties of one sort or another. There are so many different variations of loans and repayments. Now, what is the opening line of the Rambam? He's got 27 chapters of halachas of Malveh V'Loveh, and he opens up with the following line, mitzvahs aseh, he says. It's one of the Tariq mitzvahs to lend interest-free loans to an oni, to somebody who is struggling financially. And then the Rambam goes on to say something quite remarkable. He says, and this mitzvah is greater than tzedakah. Tzedakah is when somebody is poor, you give him a handout. You give him something to help him eat, help him survive. But a loan is much greater. And the reason why a loan is greater, because a loan is designed to help a person get back on his feet and develop his own financial independence, and also preserves his dignity. He's not simply a recipient of a gift, he's somebody who's borrowing money and he'll repay it. And this concept of interest-free loans has been at the heart of Jewish life since forever. And the whole idea of a gemach fund, giving interest-free loans and supporting people who are struggling, is something which is hardwired into the society, and the compassionate society that the Torah wishes to create is one of the pillars of that compassionate society is the concept of an interest-free loan. And people who have benefited in their lives from interest-free loans, as indeed I have on one or two occasions, it has been life-changing. Because you get stuck, you haven't got a way forward, and suddenly somebody gives you a loan. And that loan bridges you over, and then you're able to pick it up afterwards and get onto a rung of the ladder for financial independence. And therefore, this mitzvah has got much more to it, than meets the eye. The opening word, though, of this pasuk is a little bit interesting, because it says im. And im seems to be conditional. It doesn't seem to be a language of a tzivui, of a commandment. So Chazal already picked this up, Rashi mentions part of it here, that actually in the Torah there are three places where the Torah uses the word im, meaning if, where really it means it's a chiyuv to do it, it's a mitzvah to do it. Right? This is one of them. Right? The other one is im mizbach avonim taseli, speaking about building the mizbeach at the end of Parshas Yisro. And then there's another one which deals with the minchas bikurim, which is basically the oimer korban. And these are psukim which start with the word im, even though they mean a tzivui. And there's lots of very interesting explanations for this, but one particularly classic explanation is found in the Maharal, where he says the Torah is telling us that even though this is technically a tzivui, this is a commandment which we should respond to out of duty, the Torah doesn't want us to do it out of duty. The Torah wants us to do it as if, k'viyochol, as if it was optional, and you're choosing to do it out of your own autonomy. The Torah here is appealing to a person's autonomy. Don't think of this as a chiyuv. If you want to help somebody else, reach inside of your heart and find the compassion and the empathy which will enable you then to engage in either tzedakah, or in this case, even more than tzedakah, an interest-free loan. And this is something quite remarkable, the Maharal says, and it's true, he says, also about tefillah, that a person obviously has a mitzvah, a chiyuv to daven, but one shouldn't go into al-tas tefillas chakeva, you shouldn't go into tefillah out of a sense of duty. You should go into it out of a sense of privilege, that you want to be able to stand before HaKadosh Baruch Hu for a few moments and praise HaKadosh Baruch Hu and ask HaKadosh Baruch Hu for your own petitions. And the third one is, he says, Hakaras HaTev. Hakaras HaTev is not something you should do out of a sense of duty, but you should feel the Hakaras HaTev. You should feel that that's a natural and obvious thing to do. Okay, so this is a bit of a lengthier subject, but it's very interesting that the word in makes it look as if it's optional in order that we can engage with this mitzvah, not out of a sense of duty, but out of a sense of compassion. The Sefer Chinuch in Mitzvah Samach Vav adds another dimension to this, which is almost a little bit mystical. And he says also that giving an interest-free loan is greater than mitzvah tzedakah. And he says it's to train us into the habit of generosity and to be able to generate generosity to all our surroundings. And he says one of the reasons for this is that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is mative to us. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is machalkel chayim b'chesed. We are benefiting every neshima or neshima, every breath of our life. We are benefiting from chazdei Hashem. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu, if we are ourselves generating chesed, then we become a kli. We become a receptacle that can receive the Chazdei Hashem. The mechanism of receiving from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Chazdei Hashem, is by us being able to generate that chesed onwards. This is, that lies at the heart, he says, of this mitzvah of giving interest-free loans. And I find this very, 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 very fascinating. And it brings me to really a bit of a deeper understanding of this mitzvah. In actual fact, there's a very interesting phrase which has come into discussions maybe only in the last 10, 20 years, which is called in English, paying it forward. Normally, when you receive a loan, the idea is to pay it back, right? The borrower pays back to the lender when he can afford to, when he's able to do so, he pays back the loan. But there is an even greater mitzvah, and that is paying it forward. What does that mean? That means that the lender gives the money to the borrower and says, look, here's X amount of money, but don't give it back to me. You take this money, use it in order to help you through a difficult time, and one day you'll be wealthy, and I want you to pay it forward. I want you then to give it on to another person who is in need. And by doing it that way, by giving out loans in that way, one is creating sort of cycles of generosity which can transform a whole society. The whole society is about paying it forward. That we have all been received kindness from various people, and the people who have given us these kindness, they don't want us to give it back to them. They want us to project it further. And that is a very, very deep idea. And it's hardwired into one of the very beautiful mitzvahs of the Torah, which is often misunderstood, I think. There's a mitzvah of the Torah, one of the Torah mitzvahs, is v'holachta b'drachav. The Gemara in Sota Yudalad speaks about the mitzvah of v'holachta b'drachav, meaning imitate HaKadosh Baruch Hu, ma'hu rachum, afatar rachum. Now, just like HaKadosh Baruch Hu has rachmanas and does chesed, you should likewise imitate HaKadosh Baruch Hu and do chesed. The same idea is found in Gemara Shabbos, Daf Kuf Lamed Gimel. Abba Shaul learns out the same idea from a pasuk in Oz Yoshia. Ze keli v'anvehu. So he says, anvehu means anivahu, that I should do mahu rachum afatah rachum. That we should in some way imitate the midas of HaKadosh Baruch Hu l'tayv. And therefore, by doing so, we're makayim the mitzvah ba'alachta b'drachav. But there's something a bit deep. One can understand this mitzvah, I think, on a bit of a deeper level. And what it means is HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives us the chesed. Mahu racham afatah racham means HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives us chazdei Hashem every single moment of the day, but He doesn't want it back. He wants us then to pay it forward. He wants us then to engage in chesed towards other people. And whenever we do engage it forward, says the Sefer Chinuch, as soon as we engage in chesed, we are a shaliach of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, because we've received that chesed and we're handing it on, paying it forward to the next generation or to other people in need. And that is the greatest possible mitzvah, even greater than tzedakah itself. And I think these are ideas which are really life-changing. I once had a situation where I needed to buy a house in London and we were penniless. We were young married with 4 children and we were penniless. We were earning a salary, but we had no way of making a down payment on a house. And we were probably going to live in rented property for the rest of our life. Except that a beautiful property came up to buy, but we didn't have I think it was £20,000 at the time for a down payment. So I went and I spoke to a wealthy member of the community in Golders Green in London, and he came to look at the house. He said, it's a wonderful house, and here's what we're going to do. I'm going to lend you £20,000 interest-free, and 2 or 3 years down the line, the value of the house will go up, you'll increase your mortgage and pay me back. And that's exactly what happened. I'm cutting the story short a little bit, but only because this man gave us that interest-free loan, we became homeowners, and later on when we left, we were able to sell the house. And because of that, we were able to buy a house in Israel with the money that we sold the house in London. And all this was because this man gave us an interest-free loan for 2 or 3 years. So it can be life-changing. It can put you on a different level of independence and of dignity. And this is a mitzvah of tremendous proportions, that we become shalichei Hashem. The chesed we receive from HaKadosh Baruch Hu is in order that we can then pay it forward to the next generation. This idea, of course, also is hardwired into the whole concept of parenting. When you look after your children and you do good to them and you give them whatever you can give to your children, you're not asking for it back. You're giving it to them on the understanding that they will do that for their children and their grandchildren. And that is the hand paying it forward, which lies at the heart of Olam Chesed Yiboneh. That HaKadosh Baruch Hu created a whole world based on a cycle of generosity, a cycle of compassion, and that is part of the beauty of Tereseinu HaKadesha. That is part of the way that Klal Yisrael live, the Chesed of Rachamim, and Harvai we should be zeichet to be Shluchei Hashem, to be messengers of HaKadosh Baruch Hu in transmitting His Chesed v'chein yirot.